Hi, everybody. You're very welcome to Social Chat with Louise. So this evening, I'm delighted to have Alistair McDermott, also known as the Website Doctor, as my guest. This evening, the discussion is going to centre all around website marketing, digital marketing. So if you're planning and investing on a website, certainly there's going to be great tips here for anybody thinking about getting a new website. But equally, if you have a website and you just want to consider its performance and how you can potentially improve its performance, tune in. Really good practical tips and advice. And then equally, if you're selling online and you want to improve your website's performance in that regards, we're going to have some advice towards the end of the show in terms of selling online. So Alistair McDermott, Website Doctor, is on my guest this evening. So Alistair is an entrepreneur, a consultant, he's a trainer, a mentor, and he's an author. Alistair has written 3 books. He's the author of Running a Website with WordPress, Revitalize Your Website, and his new book called Sell Online. So I can see that we have people tuning in already. So everybody, you're very welcome to the show. If you have any questions, any particular questions that you want Alistair to answer, please feel free to comment below, and just to interact with the show. You're very welcome. We'll do to answer as many questions as we can. So before I hand you over to Alistair, I just wanted to read a little testimonial that came through today to me from Liam Horan and Sleeve Newer Careers. So when Liam heard that was going to be my very kind of time to send in this. So what he said was, Alistair rebuilt our website, Newer Careers, a few years ago, and was more than just a website developer. He took time to understand how it works. He was thus able to advise on the various issues that were causing us difficulty in the planning stage. His suggestions and how we implemented them definitely helped our business to grow. So that was a lovely testimonial, and thanks so much to Liam Horan for posting that today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Alistair. You're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Louise, and thanks, Liam, for sending that in. That's very nice to hear. Yeah. So, thanks for having me on here.
Not at all, not at all. Do you want to maybe tell us a bit about your career path to date, Alistair?
Okay, I'll keep it fairly brief. I started out as a software developer as a programmer in a multinational, and I worked there for about 7 years. And I found the large company thing, it wasn't really suited to me, so I decided to give it a go. Going out on my own and starting a business. So the economy was going great. It was early 2007. I thought it was a great time to start a business. So that's when I started. And about 2 months after I started the business, we had the banking crisis, the financial crisis, and kind of the world dropped out of everything. So the next couple of years were very interesting. So I started out selling SEO as the primary service. I had so many people asking me for websites that I eventually started building websites as well. Now I have been building websites since January of 1996. Actually, was when I built my first website. But I hadn't been doing it commercially. I did one commercially, I think, in 1999 and a couple in the 2000s. But I hadn't really done a lot of websites for people until I had so many people asking me for them. So eventually I said, okay, I'm going to start building these as well as doing SEO. And actually I found it much more, I found it a much better service to sell than SEO, because SEO is quite difficult for many reasons as a business. So also along the way, I did a lot of talks at events, and because of that, I had a lot of people who approached me with offers to be partner or to take part in a startup. So I took a couple of those up, and I've been part of a few different startups, and some of those have imploded spectacularly. Some of those had fairly decent, let's say modest days, and but I'm back mostly focused on my own thing, my own consultancy, which is Website Doctor. So that's what I do now, and I try and focus on the business side of technology.
Very good. Thanks for that. And in fact, I totally agree with you. It's so funny because I would on SEO services as well. And what I find is that people don't want to pay for SEO, even though I think it's probably one of the most important things you can get done with your website. But anyway, so look at everybody, a little bit of structure on the show this evening. So first of all, we're going to look at getting started. So anyone considering investing in a website, we're going to first of all address that. And then we're going to move on to improving website performance for existing websites. And then we're going to look at how you can sell more online. So I can see there's quite a few people tuning in live. Please feel free to comment below. Can everybody hear us and see us? Is everything okay? Everything looks okay from the end, but please feel free to let us know. So first thing I want to let you know, Alistair, for anybody looking to get a new website, how can they choose a good website developer?
Well, it's actually a tough one. I talk to a lot of people about this. One of the first thing I'd say to do is talk to your peers, talk to people around you in your network, other business owners. Look at the sites of local businesses that you like, and try and find some people that way. I recommend that you actually talk to a lot of different developers and or different providers, and try and get speaking to as many of them as possible. And a big thing is trusting your gut. I really believe that if you get a good vibe off somebody, that's important. And if you get a bad vibe, just walk away. It's web design it's actually quite it's complex from a technical point of view, but it's also complex from a business and marketing point of view. And getting that part right is really important. And the technology and the design part, the visual design, they're actually fairly easy compared to the business and marketing side. I think that they're fairly straightforward, whereas that I think of it as a triangle, and the marketing business side is the really important one to get right. And I think that's the one that a lot of people who go into web design as providers or as web designers or web developers, we kind of use those two terms interchangeably. A lot of people who go into that business, they're quite strong on the technology or the visual design side, but they don't tend to have the experience for the marketing side. And so it's important to try and find somebody who's got a bit of experience with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Because I think sometimes businesses, when they have this misconception that when they develop a website, like if they build it, people will come, and they won't necessarily. So, having a focus on how you're going to drive traffic to that website afterwards is extremely important. So, so okay, that's good advice. And then, like, what should people be thinking about in terms of price then?
Website pricing is very interesting and complex. And I've been thinking a lot about this and talking to people about it. You're going to get prices all over the map when you talk to people, and usually, the saying "you get what you pay for" does strike true. But there are, let's say, inexpensive solutions out there that are available that are good for people who don't have a large budget and just want to get their toe in the water. There are hosted solutions, or kind of like software as a service solutions like Shopify, and those types of sites like Squarespace and Shopify are the two I would think of. And you can get started with those for quite cheap, so you're paying a low monthly fee. But if you want a bespoke custom website, then you're probably looking at paying upwards of €3,000 to €5,000 for a professional non-e-commerce website. And then if it's e-commerce, e-commerce is a lot more complex, because with the e-commerce, as opposed to just lead generation, with e-commerce you have a checkout process. You also have inventory management. You've got the products and category, and you've got the payment processing, which is quite complex as well. So you've got to make sure all of those details are taken care of. So actually doing that stuff right is quite time consuming, and there's an awful lot of detail. And if the web provider is not charging enough, then usually they're going to rush something. So they need to be charging enough to do the job properly. Unfortunately, it has become a bit of a race to the bottom with website pricing because the barrier to entry is very low. It's a lot of people need websites, and it's quite easy to put together a bad website very quickly with not very much skill. So a lot of people can claim to be web designers and can put something up, but really, you're not going to get a lot of value out of it, even if it's an inexpensive site. So I would say, try and talk to somebody who's been in business for a few years, and try and talk to some of their customers and say, look, would you work with this company again? And then just consider the amount of work. I mean, it's like there's a lot of data, there's a lot of content, a lot of technical and design work that needs to go into it. If somebody's offering something that seems too good to be true, then there's got to be a catch somewhere. So just go into it with your eyes open and try and get pricing from a few different companies, and then make a decision based on that.
Yeah, and I would also always say to people as well, to even if you can ask the web developers to itemize the different features in the website, so at least they can look through, and if they want to compare one website quote against another, at least they may be able to compare them if they're all itemized in the same way. And similarly, if there was a part of the website that they couldn't afford in phase 1, maybe they could implement it in phase 2 or phase 3. So that would be advice.
That's a good point. Yeah. The website tends to be like a living entity where it grows over time. So it should be it should be, particularly if it's built with something like a modern content management system, where you can actually go and improve it and do that phase 2 and phase 3 over time. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So what other advice then would you give to people that are just starting off? Like, so what do they need to have, before even to go to a web developer? What do they need to know? What do they need to be able to give the web developer so that he has an idea of what he needs to develop for them?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, first I'll just address that from the opposite angle for a minute. When you go to a web developer, web designer, as a business owner, they should be asking you so many questions that it starts to actually get annoying. They should be asking you a whole ton of questions about your business, about how your business works, and about your customers. And they need to understand your customers and your customers' needs as well as you do, nearly, because they're representing you with this website. So they should be asking you a whole bunch of questions. And so, and that's why if somebody gives you, if you call up somebody to get a quote and they spend 2 minutes on the phone and then send you a 1-page quote, I wouldn't really shortlist them because they're not really putting in the time and effort to understand your business, which is really important in actually creating a website that will market your business properly. So I would say, if they're asking you a whole lot of questions, then that's a really good sign. So the question they should be asking you then, was some basic questions like, do you already have a domain name? Do you already have a website up? What do you like about your current website? What do you not like about it? Can you show some competitors' websites and what do you like about those? What do you not like about those? Do you have a logo? Do you have brand guidelines for your business? What kind of photography do you have? Do you have any professional photography done of you, your staff, your premises, your products? So they should be asking all those types of questions. And something else they probably should be asking you is about things like, do you know what the average customer lifetime value is for your customers? So how much is a new customer worth to your business on average? Because that helps. That really helps to understand what you can afford to spend on marketing. Because if you can understand what the cost of a lead is, then that will then feed back in, because you know how much you can spend on a new lead for your business. So I guess that's kind of an overview of some of them. Other ones might be simple things like, do you already have website hosting? If you do you have a password? Who has the password for that? And sometimes getting access to those passwords and simple things like that can take weeks or months. So
nightmare.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of questions they should be asking you. So I have a questionnaire, and I call it business plan for your website, because that's effectively what the questionnaire is. The questionnaire I send people is about 12 pages long. So,
Wow.
so there's quite a lot, and I know it is long, and I do say, look, you can skip stuff if it's getting too long, but as much information as possible will really help us to figure out what we need to do with the site, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say to small businesses, I think what's really important, well, what I'd always be harping on about is that they need to understand what their unique selling proposition is. So they need to understand how they are different from their competitors, because they need to be able to communicate that in order to be able to attract new customers. And if they don't know how they're different, they're not even going to be able to tell you how they're different. So businesses need to know how they're different, why they're unique, why business customers should do business with them. And another common thing, I don't know if you found this, but I would have found that lots of small businesses wouldn't have any logo or any branding whatsoever. And they'd come to me and we'd be saying like, no, you nearly need to get that done first, because otherwise you're going to have business cards that look different from your website, that look different from your brochure, that look different from your Facebook page, that look different from your T-shirt or your road sign. So that would be all very important.
I've seen larger businesses that have a lot of staff, have been in business for 20 years, and they still don't use consistent logos and branding. So like, it's not just that the startup, but like it does make you look so much more professional. And if you can stick to that consistency visually, I think it's really important. And one of the first things that I would do when looking at kind of the visual elements of a website is to look for the logo, to see what kind of colors we're dealing with, because that's really important. Usually the visual, the strong colors are going to come off your logo and your brand guidelines, you know? So like, that is really important.
Yeah, cool. So anything else then for people starting out, Alistair?
I guess just like there's a whole range of different people who are building websites. So there's people who are former techies like me. So the programmers, the really logical left brain people, I guess. And when they're building sites, they're very much about the logic of the site and the structure and the technology. Quite often then you've got the visual person, and sometimes the visual person and the technology person are working together, and they can create really good websites. And quite often you'll see a partnership, a website provider, their business will be a partnership between a techie and a business person, techie and a designer. Then you've got the business focus or the marketing focus person. And so sometimes, quite often you'll see that it's not actually a partnership, but the marketing person or business person will be hiring the designer or hiring the techie, because they've got more business savvy, so they don't want to give away some of the business. So you'll see that. So when you're dealing with website companies, quite often there's a whole lot of basically one person companies, solo freelancers, and they'll be one of those types of three people for the most part. Then you've got partnerships, which are two people, and then you've got the smaller agencies, which are 3 or 4 or 5 people. And usually they'll have, when you've got 3, 4, 5 people, usually they've got a good spread of talent across the team. So if you're talking to a company where it's one person, I would try and figure out which they are. Are they techie, or are they design focused, or are they marketing focused? And then figure out, do they have the skills, or do they have knowledge of what they're missing on the other side, the other skills that are needed for the site, and find out, do they work with somebody to supplement that? Because quite often they'll work with a partner who'll come in on the project and do particular parts of it. And that's fine. But just understanding, there are 3 really important parts to the site. There's the visual aesthetic, the visual design, there's the technology part, and then there's the marketing part. And all 3 of those need to be present in a good website. So I would just think about that and when you're looking at your quotes. And in fact, you can quite often tell just by looking at the quote. If the quote is very visually appealing, then but it doesn't have a lot of information, then it's usually from a graphic designer, visual person. If it doesn't look so appealing, but it's got lots of information, it's probably from a technical person. You'll see this in the quotes. Like, I see this all the time when I'm doing I do some evaluations, and I see a lot of these quotes coming in, and I can tell straight away by looking at the quotes who it's from. And then the marketing business will usually be much bigger quotes. It won't be a one-page quote; they'll be 20 pages. So, so, so just bear that in mind, and talk to the potential providers, and shortlist the ones who are asking lots of questions, and then go with your gut instinct after you've talked to some of their customers, and the customers say, yes, I would work with them again. So, okay, sorry, that's a bit of information overload, but I hope that helps.
That. No, that's brilliant. That's so true. I know exactly where you're coming from there. Yeah. So come here. Okay, so for people who have websites, okay, so somebody already has a website up and running. What, like, I suppose performance is a big area that they would need to consider. What advice can you give there?
Okay, so when I think of website performance, I'm usually thinking of page load. So how quickly does a page load for somebody when they click on the link in Google or in Facebook or wherever it is? And performance is very important because Google are actually penalizing slower sites now. So because basically Google want to rank websites that give the user a good experience. And if a website is slow, it's not a good experience. So Google are penalizing that now. So, so you do need to be fast, and you also need to be fast just because if your website's too slow, people aren't patient anymore. They don't have attention is everything, and if you don't get your site to load quickly for them, they're going to be gone. So the rule of thumb is that at about 8 seconds, you're losing 50% of your audience. Wow. So if your site takes 8 seconds to load, that's 50% of people have left. For me, my rule of thumb is to try and get a site to load within 4 seconds. So that a page would load within 4 seconds visually for somebody. And that's fairly decent. If you can load in 3, then that's good. And if you can load in 2 seconds, that's really good. And if you can load in anything under 2 seconds, that's really, really good. So you can actually test the speed that your site loads. So there's a couple of different sites that you can use to test that. One is called GTmetrix. Another one is called webpagetest.org. That's GTmetrix and webpagetest.org. So the main thing is if you do test your site in that and then you make changes, stay consistent with whichever one you tested in, because if you compare results from one against the other, they won't necessarily be the same. But what those sites do is they will tell you how quick your site is loading, and they'll give you some information, and some of it is obvious, and then some of it, the GTmetrix one is a bit more user-friendly for non-technical people, whereas I tend to use the webpagetest.org one because it gives me a bit more information. But that will give you a lot of information about where the bottleneck is, because websites can be slow for various different reasons. Quite often it's that there's a really large image on a page, and it hasn't been optimized. Somebody took an image on a big Canon DSLR, or like even just like a picture, a photo taken on an iPhone can be too large. Somebody just puts that straight up without doing any optimization. So basically, what you can do is you can compress images before you put them up, or in Photoshop you can do save for web. So you can even get plugins for WordPress that will automatically, when you upload an image, will automatically crunch it down or compress it so that it's not going to be too big. So so large images are a really simple but obvious one. And then bad hosting. You can, if you're on very cheap web hosting that's not good quality, then that can really slow down your site. And then another thing is, sorry.
Just in terms of the images, before we move on, like how big, like what size should the images be? So when is it too big?
Okay, so my rule of thumb for this one would be, if it's a large background image and there's only going to be a few of them on the page, then if you can keep that image to 200 kilobytes or less. If it's just an image within the text and you're going to have a whole bunch of them, then I think that every one of those should be 60 to 100 kilobytes. But really, I'd be hoping that the entire page is less than half a megabyte, so less than 500 kilobytes when you add it all up. So,
and what about the slider images? You see websites with the big slider images.
I would want those to be under 200 kilobytes if possible. I know that's hard, but I would really try and optimize them as much as possible. Now, I'm not a big fan of the big sliders I do like having big images on the site. When I launch my new website, hopefully you guys will see that. But the idea of having the sliding images can be quite distracting. Quite often they're set to move too fast, and somebody's reading something and it's gone, and it can be very distracting. But also having lots of images in sliders, if each one of them is 200 kilobytes, you could have a page that's over 2 megabytes in size or whatever, and that's just too big for somebody who's on mobile. Because a lot of people, 50-60% of people are looking at this on mobile, and they're not always on a fast 4G connection. Sometimes they're on a 3G connection or something like that, or maybe even one of the older edge connections. And so your page is really slow, and is also using their mobile bandwidth. So they're all kind of considerations.
So somebody who has, taken a few photographs on their smartphone and they're 4 and 5 megabytes and they want to compress them for their website, is there any tools that you can recommend that they should use?
Yeah, so if you take the photo from your phone and you put it onto your computer, then you can compress it down. Some people have Adobe Photoshop, and then you can just open the image and do save for web. There's a tool in Windows called Riot, R-I-O-T, and that stands for Radical Image Optimizer Tool. And so R-I-O-T, that's in Windows, and there is a Mac equivalent, and I don't know what it's called because I don't use Mac, but if you do Riot for Mac, then you'll find it. So, and Riot is quite good because what you do is you drop an image in, and it shows you the original and the compressed version side by side, and you can change a slider to how much you're willing to let the image degrade to compress it. Because a lot of these compression techniques actually remove data from the image, so the image starts to degrade. It's what we call a lossy method of compression. But effectively, what it's doing is it's making the file smaller by taking out some of the detail out of the image. So you can move the slider back and forth to set where you want the bar to be. So Riot's quite good for that. The other good thing about Riot is you can do batch, so you can do a folder of 100 images. You can just set it up, and it'll do all of them at the same time with the settings. So that's pretty cool. You can also there's another one called Paint.net for Windows. That's an image editing program that I like to use sometimes. So I have Photoshop, but sometimes I just use Paint.net because it's quite quick and easy to use.
Paint,
you can just open up the image. Paint.net. So it's not the Microsoft Paint that comes with Windows. It's called Paint.net, and I don't know if the website is actually Paint.net. It could be. So it's Paint. It's called .net because that's the technology, the .net programming language that Microsoft uses. I think it's getpaint.net for. But if you just put Paint.net into Google, you'll get it. So
and just for anybody watching here, what I'm going to do afterwards is going to get a list of all these from Allister, and I'll link on the website, so at least everybody can have a list of all those. These are great tips.
Cool. Okay, so so the other two I mentioned before, Riot, GT Metrics, webpagetest.org. So I'm writing those down for myself here.
Yeah, I've been taking notes as well. Just a lovely comment there from Anne. Anne Finn just joined and delighted to hear the discussion about images on website. Great tips from Allister. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Anne. I hope it's helpful. Yeah, the thing about images, I think that it's a really important skill. I think it's a crucial skill for anybody who's doing any kind of online social social less so, but any kind of website work. Like if you put an image up on Facebook is just going to compress it automatically. They'll do that, and sometimes they go overboard with that. And sometimes you put a nice image up and they compress the hell out of it, and it looks really crappy afterwards. But that's what they do. They take it out of your hands and they just do it for you. But with your own website, it's an important skill to learn. And there are plenty of tools. There's loads of videos on YouTube showing if you're not very technical, you can go on YouTube and you can learn these things about how to edit images. But I think it is an important skill for anybody involved in managing a website to do.
Totally, because even when your web developer hands you over your website, you've got to be able to add images, and you're going to want to add images within that. So you don't want to be uploading 5 megabyte images in the middle of an article, because it's just totally going to kill the download time. So yeah, that's okay. So that was the first thing in terms of performance. We talked about images. So you had moved on to, and I interrupted you.
So a big thing is your hosting. So your website hosting. A lot of people don't know what the difference is between the different types of hosting. And because of that, they start out by just going for the cheapest, because when you don't really know what the difference is, you might as well go for the cheapest. But there can be a big difference in terms of website performance between a cheap host and an expensive host. And so when you're if your website is quite slow in general, I've taken people's sites from one hosting to another without making any changes to the website. Just moved it from one host to another, and it's dropped from 11-second page load down to 5-second page load. So now 5 seconds is still not great, but it's a lot better than 11 seconds. So it's big difference. And that's just with hosting. And then there's other things that you can do, like turning on what's called caching. And that makes a big difference as well.
And Alistair, what hosting companies would you recommend that people look at then within the Irish market?
So I would say that the main thing is don't go with the bargain basement. Don't go with the cheapest. Look, and the company that I use actually isn't based in Ireland. With hosting, it's complicated because it's not just about the hosting service itself. It's about, if you want to log in, how easy is it for you to go in and log into your hosting control panel and make changes? So one of the biggest companies here has a hosting control panel that I don't like. So even though I like their hosting, I don't like their control panel, so don't use them. I don't want to say who that is because I don't know. The company that I use at the moment is called SiteGround, and I find them really good. And SiteGround. So yeah, they're a good mix between price versus performance, because that's usually what the calculation is. And I had a really good company previously, but they were a very small company. And what happened was the owner of the company actually died suddenly, and I got an email at 10 o'clock on a Friday morning when I was just about to go on holidays, saying that he had died suddenly and that they had no succession plan, so that all of the hosted websites that I had on my account could go offline at any point. So it was really unfortunate. He was a lovely guy to work with, very sad. But it was a small company, and he hadn't put any kind of plan in place for this. And so it was kind of a wake-up call for me that maybe I should be working with, for something mission critical like website hosting, that maybe I should be working with a slightly bigger company where there's clearly a succession plan, and there's no kind of reliance on one person. So yeah, that's the odds of that happening are quite low, but it's still something to think about. So I tend to steer clear of the really small companies now for stuff like hosting. And hosting is like a utility. It's like your phone or your internet or your electricity, and it's something where you need it to be reliable, but I will have a page at websitedoctor.com/hosting.
Brilliant.
And I'll have some more information for people on there. I do have some more information on there, and that'll be back live hopefully by tomorrow.
That's fantastic. Okay, so in terms of site performance, we've talked about images, we've talked about the site speed testing, we've talked about hosting. So was there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of performance?
The main other thing is, just if you're using a system like WordPress, then make sure that you're using some sort of caching plugin. So caching, I don't want to go into the technical side of it. It's just something that will speed up your website, and it's important to use it. So there's a couple of different caching solutions for WordPress, and there's a couple of different caching solutions for the other options that are out there. So just look up and ask your developer, or look up what the best caching solutions are, and implement one of those. It's usually just installing a plugin.
Brilliant. Okay, that's great. So anything else then in relation to existing websites? Obviously mobile friendly is a must in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think depending on your business, if you've got a business like a restaurant or something like that, you're probably going to have maybe 70-80% of your visitors are going to be on mobile. If it's a B2B business, you might have a lot less than that. It might be 30-40-50%. But I think on average, I'm seeing the numbers 50-60%, and it's rising all the time of people are on mobile. So it's really important you've got a
Yes.
mobile-friendly site in every way.
Yeah, and in fact, I presume you still can. You can do the Google mobile friendly test to see if your website passes what Google considers to be a mobile friendly test. Because websites that aren't mobile friendly,
the page insights.
Sorry, Alistair. So I was just saying that websites that aren't mobile friendly just don't even show up in mobile searches. So it's really important even in terms of visibility. Yeah. So Shelf Varity has just said the best way to get a good website ranking, and she's saying thanks for the advice so far. So thanks very much for commenting, Shell. So yeah, that brings us on nicely to search engine optimization, Alistair. Mm-hmm. What advice can you give to our viewers?
Okay, so if you think about it from a backwards point of view, Google makes all of their money from people clicking on ads in search results. So Google, they make about 90% of their money from that. So they want everybody to keep clicking on those ads, and they want people to keep using Google for search. And people will keep using Google for search when they do a search and they get good results.
Yes.
So the logic is that Google want to rank good sites, good answers for questions in the top of the results, so that when somebody does a search, that they'll actually find what they're looking for quite quickly. Mm-hmm. So so what that means is that in order to rank highly, you've got to have something that's very relevant and very good. So ideally, you want to be creating really good content. And to rank for any given topic, all you've got to do is create the best content in the world for that particular topic, and you should rank number one. So that's easier said than done. And I think that Google in the past has not rewarded the best content, and they've allowed people to game the system. But they're really trying to fight that. They're really trying to find that good content and rank it higher. And all of their algorithm changes and everything are aimed around ranking poor content lower and better content higher. So I'd say really try and make good content. You're much better off spending a week on one page on your website than creating 10 pages a day for those 5 days and putting up 50 pages of mediocre content.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So any other advice then in terms of like people approaching how they can maybe potentially improve their website performance? Good content, absolutely. And then share that content out on your social media, because the link back from your social media and even the attribution. So if lots of people comment and share and say good things about the article that you shared, that link will actually count really more in terms of Google and in terms of its weight. And lots of links back to your content are like votes for your content, and that helps Google kind of differentiate between good content and kind of bad content. Yeah,
for sure. And in fact, Google have changed their mind 3 times on this. They've said publicly that they don't use social indicators to rank, and then they've said that they do, and then they've said again that they don't. So it's really hard to know exactly where they are, but I think that it would really be a good idea for Google to use those kind of indicators, because that stuff that's ranking highly in social should be better content.
Absolutely. Absolutely has to.
So I'd say, yeah, for social, I can't really give you much good advice. Just follow Louise and listen to what she's telling you.
Yeah. So anything else then, general tips on SEO apart from the content?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Sorry, any other general tips for search engine optimization apart from the good content?
If you can get links, then like try and get links from other websites. Try and ask business owners to link to you if there's something relevant. It's really difficult, and if you can look up link building. Link building will help your SEO because Google will see those links as a recommendation for your site. They'll see it as a vote of confidence in your site. So it is important to try and get links.
Absolutely. Okay, I just lost you. You're back there again. Okay, so well, let's move on to increasing online sales. Can you have any advice in that regard then? I know you have a new book coming out all on the topic, Alistair, so...
Yeah, so I've got a book in the works called Sell More Online, and I've got a podcast in the works of the same name, Sell More Online. So there's two aspects to it. One is what your offer is. What are you actually offering people? And then the other is bringing people to that offer. Mm-hmm. So on the traffic side, on bringing people to the offer, you can be bringing people from places like social, where they're basically in kind of a browsing, they're kind of looking for entertainment when they're on social, and you're trying to pique their interest. Or if they're coming from, say, something like search, where they're specifically looking for a solution, so usually they're in a better place to buy. So you want to send those two different types of people to different offers. So people coming in from something on social, maybe give them content that isn't as kind of hard sell. Whereas people who are coming in from search, they're usually looking specifically for a solution for a problem. So if you've got people coming in from search, then send them directly to a solution, and they're much more likely to be ready to buy at that stage. Yeah,
they've got the credit card out.
So okay. It is a huge topic, but the interesting thing about it is you can take somebody through a whole kind of buying cycle where you can offer them something free at the start, and then you can offer them something that's inexpensive, and then you can bring them into your main product. So and usually that free thing at the start is something to get them into your marketing funnel, and it's some quite often it's something to like an opt-in incentive for email. So for that kind of stuff, I like 1-page or 2-page documents, usually like a cheat sheet or a checklist or something like that. Something that's high value, but it's also very quick and easy for people to consume.
Yeah, so that would work really well on social media, like the cheat sheets, or even an article with how to, or 5 tips, or 5 things to avoid, or how to do this. They all tend to work well on your social media. And really what you're doing is you're warming people up and you're bringing them to your website. And then if they do want to buy more, all your products or services or how they can purchase them are there online. But then in Google, I suppose, the more specific the search, the more likely that they're closer to making their purchase, you know. So if somebody searches for brown boots, they may be thinking about buying boots. But if they search for brown boots with a brand name, with size, you know, they've probably got their credit card in their hand and they're ready to buy, you know. So so that's all. Yeah. So and I know that you do quite a lot of work for the local enterprise offices in terms of the trading online vouchers. Do you want to maybe tell us a bit more about those?
Okay, so the trading online voucher is a fund to help people to upgrade their e-commerce or non-e-commerce site. So it's for existing businesses that have been in operation for at least 12 months. And it's a matched contribution of 50% towards your website up to €2,500. So if you're spending €5,000 plus VAT, then you will get back €2,500. I do have a video on YouTube which has a lot more information, but it goes into it in much more details, talking about who's eligible, who's not eligible. If you go to youtube.com/website doctor, and you'll find a video on there, the Trading Online Voucher Scheme, it's called. And basically, it's a great fund to help businesses, you know, who are looking to invest, to get more out of their investment. So if you're in that situation where you've want to invest in your new website and you've been in operation for a while, then you should really check it out.
Brilliant. And I'll actually get a link to that, and I'll post it in the article with all the little tips and advice that you've given as well. So I'll be posting that. Yeah, I'll comment on this post and let people know where they can find all that information. So okay, well look, thanks very much. I think we've covered an awful lot. We're broadcasting nearly 50 minutes now, so time is absolutely flown. So I think that's probably a testament to how good the chat has been, and thank you so much for all those fantastic advice and tips. And there was so much there. I down myself and post an article about it, and I'll embed this video with it. So Alistair, if people want to find you, how can they find you?
So if you visit websitedoctor.com, and hopefully my new site will be there by the time people are looking at it, particularly if they're reading it on the article. Anybody who's watching this live, you probably will not see it right now because it's redirecting to one of my backup sites. But I will have that back online at some stage tomorrow, and I'm launching my new site, and I have some really great photography on there, which I had a professional from Charlestown, Sean Flynn, did a really great job. And so I'm really looking forward to getting the new site up because the photography is fabulous.
Very good, very good. Well, look, and when is the new book out?
That's a good question, and that's probably a question my publisher wants to know as well. So, yeah, I might be in a little bit of trouble there. So soon, but probably not anytime in the next 3 months. But
okay,
it's something I want to get sorted.
And your 2 other books, can people buy those on your website?
So you can go to amazon.com or .co.uk, and if you look up my name, so the Running a Website with WordPress is up. The Revitalize WordPress website will be, it's currently taken down just for some editing changes and stuff, but that will be back up there.
Okay.
Brilliant. So, and then the new book, yeah, that will be a couple of months before that's out.
Great, great. Well, look at Alistair. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show this evening. Thank you so much for all the absolutely fantastic information there. And even I can see all the comments coming in with people thanking you. So thanks very much. And I'll post all those links in the next few days, everyone. Okay, thanks everyone. See you 2 weeks time.
Cheers. Bye bye.